All right, hello and welcome. We're joined today by Fox NFL analyst Tony Gonzalez and Super Bowl champ Eric Davis. Let's start in New York, where Ezekiel Elliott testified at an appeal hearing today in hopes of having his 6-game suspension thrown out or reduced. Elliott's boss, Jerry Jones, defended the running back multiple times before the suspension, but had been quiet since the decision came down until today, that is.
It should. It's a very complicated issue, and because you have no evidence here. And so that's all I want to say about it, but it creates quite a convoluted approach by Zeke's representatives and by the league that I really hate is a focus of all of our attention.
All right, Cowherd, does Jerry need to stop publicly defending Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah, I think when it comes to domestic violence, let the attorneys sort it out. But on a bigger note, let's say Ezekiel Elliott's suspension is reduced. Does Jerry want the perception that he altered the suspension, that his influence stepped in? He's a very powerful man. I mean, he moved an NFL team basically to Las Vegas, which was a stigma for 100 years. Does he want the perception, if it's reduced, that Jerry's the reason, his power, that it got reduced? I think you should stay away from this and let attorneys figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think Jerry would care, because I think Jerry believes in Zeke's innocence, and Jerry believes in the absence of evidence here. I think Jerry's making a play not unlike what the different deal. This is a criminal case or criminal type allegations, but a different play than what New England did with Deflategate. They strung that out in court for a year. The suspension didn't take effect until the next year for Tom Brady. I think that's what Jerry and the Cowboys are doing here. They're all in on trying to win a Super Bowl this year. They feel like they have a Super Bowl team. Jerry's getting towards the end of his deal here. He's going to defend Zeke until the hilt, hopefully get through this year, win a Super Bowl, and then let the chips fall where they may.
If you're looking at it from a standpoint where you believe the evidence, then don't stop fighting. That's how it is. I heard some guys earlier today say that Zeke should just come back and just say, you know what, this is too big of a distraction. I'm just going to take the punishment and I'm going to move on. Not if you didn't do it. I understand it's an ugly thing that's going on, but if you believe, and if Jerry Jones believes that the evidence that he's seen and the evidence that's in his case, and I'm sure he's been privy to all of it, that the guy didn't do anything, then he shouldn't stop fighting for him. Zeke shouldn't stop fighting for himself. We understand that this is a touchy issue, but just like something could have happened, he could be telling the truth. So you have to continue to fight it to the end, regardless of how it is. So I don't have a problem with Jerry saying, I believe what the guy is saying, if he believes it.
Yeah, well, Jerry's going to do what Jerry wants to do.
Yeah, we know that.
Jerry's in his own world. So I don't think you're ever going to, just even having that conversation about should he say something or not. Jerry's going to do what he wants to do. But we had a chance to listen to the commissioner and present his side of the story. Obviously, he's not giving details of what actually happened, but when you give it to 4 independent people and different, one an ex-player, I think there was 2 women, one ex-detectives, cops for 30 years or whatever, and they all come back with the same decision that, yes, he deserves something, and you're still going to continue to fight it. I don't know. I guess I'm not the judge either, but I do have an opinion. I would say, just let the chips go. You got a great offensive line. I agree with what you're saying, just stay out of it. But at the same, that's not Jerry's demeanor, and he's gonna do what he feels. He talks and talks, and he does a great job at it too. So I don't have a problem.
He's a 74-year-old billionaire. Even if you're a 38-year-old billionaire, you got a long tail to your life. You have to be conciliatory. You get to be a 75-year-old billionaire. You got 6 years left, 7 before you hand it to the kids. You're not going to tell people what to do. And there's no question, as money ages, it doesn't always age well. It becomes more eccentric and more powerful and less conciliatory. And so I think Jerry looks at it and thinks, what? Listen, I'm making all the moves in this league now. I'm moving franchises. I moved St. Louis to L.A., Oakland to Vegas. I'm going to say what I want to say. And I think sometimes, commissioners would like to have all their owners to be unified. But Jerry is senior, one of the richest, the most powerful, and he was a loose cannon in his 40s.
But do you believe that Jerry is having this fight and having this discussion and proclaiming his innocence because he's just trying to get the sentence reduced? I heard you say so just string it on and then accept it later, or get a reduction right now. Do you think that's what's really happening?
No, I think Jerry believes in the absence of evidence here and doesn't want Zeke convicted of something and punished when there's no real evidence. As long as it's a he said, she said, Jerry's going to be like, well, hold on, man, this is America. We need more than that.
That's what would transpire anyway. Why would his words influence that? If you're right, and if he believes that, why would he have to influence it if there's no evidence?
Well, again, I'm going to remove the money from it. My father got to be about over 65, and he just didn't care what anybody thought, and he was just a ghetto thousandaire. And so once you reach a certain age and you don't care.
That's what I'm saying with Jerry. He doesn't anymore.
And so I don't think that's a money thing. I just think that's an age that you live long enough, and it's like there's only so much BS you're going to tolerate in Jerry's mind.
But let me say this, though. But how many of us believe, because I believe that one thing that Jerry does care about is the ongoing good of the league. I really do think that matters to him.
Yeah.
And the thing about this case, getting it reduced and Ezekiel Elliott getting a 2-game suspension, in my opinion, that would be worse. Because you're basically saying, because if you're saying 6 games for domestic abuse, you find evidence, because if you give him games, you found evidence of domestic abuse. So you're saying, okay, well, if you choke her, it's not as bad as if you punch her. It's not as bad as if you throw her down. It's like domestic abuse, okay, if that's what you're going to say, take your stand. And I think that puts a bigger black eye on the league than actually saying, okay, this is what you did, and this is the punishment, and we have a zero tolerance policy, as opposed to, well, you can get away with certain things.
All right, to Zeke's teammate, Dak Prescott, who just weighed in on the NFL's ongoing wave of national anthem protests, saying he's, quote, not at all tempted to join the demonstrations, and offered an interesting explanation.
It's bigger than I think some of us think. I mean, it's just important for me to go out there, hand over my heart, represent our country, and just be thankful and not take anything I've been given and this, my freedom for granted.
Whitlock, if you read between the lines here, it sounds like Dak is calling out anthem protesters. You surprised?
Not really, because eventually I think the silent majority does get the courage to speak up. And I think if you went around the league, most guys that are blessed enough to make it to the NFL, blessed enough to take care of their families because they're in the NFL, are very appreciative of America and the opportunities that are presented here in America. And most guys, I think, feel like, hey, there's some problems here in America, but I don't need to address them during the national anthem, while I'm in uniform, while I'm playing in a league that has blessed me. I can do my protesting away from work like most every other person in their work environment. And so I just think common sense eventually will rule. I think there's been a loud, vocal minority that have tried to shame everybody, that wants to pretend like, you know, we all got to sit around here and pretend like America is this evil place, and as a black person, you have no chance. That's not true to my experience, wasn't true to my father's experience, my mother, my brother. I can't tell a lie. America's not perfect, but you're not going to get me to just take a dump on America, and so you can't get Dak Prescott and a lot of these players.
Well, there's certain positions, president, generally, you know, a big CEO, a quarterback, I consider them sort of uniting positions. You shouldn't inflame stuff. It's not about being divisive. It's the first reason I really started to like Russell Wilson. Is Russell Wilson, the Seahawks had a lot of talkers and a lot of sound, and Pete Carroll's hyper, and like Russell just brings it all down. You know, Tom Brady, Deflategate, very guarded. Dak, to me, I've never been blown away by his arm, his size. To me, he's a leader. And I think leaders in the NFL are largely uniters. You and I disagree, I'm going to bring us together under the umbrella. And so I'm not surprised. Like, this has been the thing about Dak that's always impressed me. He feels older, wiser, bigger than his age. And I think Russell Wilson feels like it. I think Andrew Luck came in, neck, beard, and all. You kind of were like, this guy's kind of bigger than little micro issues. So if you'd have told me a young quarterback said this, I'd have said, oh, Dak Prescott would be the quarterback that would say this.
I'm noticing that everyone's looking at me, waiting for me to jump on something. No, I'm not. First of all, I don't think he's calling anyone out. I don't think he's calling them out. I think he was answering a question. And he gave his opinion on that question, and you see that he's put thought into it, and he can articulate how he feels about it. But in no way do I think he's calling out other guys. But the funny thing about this, this right here. This isn't a cap conversation, but this is a cap conversation because this is the point that I think we've all kind of gotten to. He's not even on the team, and you're having to answer that question. You're having to answer, how do you feel about the national anthem protest?
Which is a cap question.
Which is a cap question. Okay?
And he's not on the team.
And he's not on your team. That's my point on all of this. When he's on your team, it's going to get really, you're going to have to deal with it all the time because you're asking this guy's sitting down in an interview, all the things that the Dallas Cowboys have going on that you can ask Dak Prescott about right now. You're going to ask him about that.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
And another way that I'm looking at it, too, I love this kid, too. Talk about courage. I mean, just to even answer the question, because he could have just said, which is probably what I would have said at that age, probably in my 17th year, I would have been like, you know what, I'm not even going to get involved with that. No comment. What else do you want to talk about? But he answered the question, and I love that. And he opened himself up, too. Because now we're talking about it, and now reporters are going to say, and you're going to now he's probably getting hit up on Twitter and all that other stuff, and they're
he's
saying,
against
"What
it
do you
now.
do? And
Yes.
you're against it? Oh, you sell out and all this different stuff." Now, I love that he has the courage to even just speak up and give his opinion about it, because you know there's going to be a storm coming. There's going to be people out there now that are going to be like, what are they with you or against you? And that takes great courage, and that's why he's going to be a great football player.
That's what and you mentioned this. The Twitter mob is real. I mean, it is. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. You get shamed into different stuff. And it's weird, but Jerry came out about a couple days ago and spoke. You know, Jerry's been pro-cop, pro-military. It's the state of Texas. It leans right? We know, and so does Jerry. That's the oil business. You know, I wonder if that had some influence on Dak, being like, you know what, that's my owner. He gave me a chance. He got rid of Romo. Like, I do wonder if there's a little influence where Dak watched the owner and thought, you know what, man? They're handing me the keys to the franchise. I'm a fourth-round pick, and they totally believed in me. With the media and the fans were like, Tony Romo, put him in. Tony Romo. I wonder if that's an influence.
Well, look, again, and I've been saying this the entire time, for these alleged conservative, bigoted owners, Jerry's kind of the face of that. Jerry loved Tony Romo, loved him like a son, and went with the black quarterback because he thought he was better. Jerry, from Michael Irvin to Nate Newton, all these former players that had some problems in that, they all loved Jerry Jones. So I wish that we could put down this narrative that, oh my God, because he's conservative, because he's a Republican, somehow he's anti-black. It's a silly notion. I would just very quickly, I don't want to generalize about NFL players, and let's try to remove Kaepernick from it, but I just think most NFL players, when they've had the kind of careers y'all had, there is part of you that's like, damn, this is pretty cool in America, and you feel very appreciative of what you've been able to do for your families because of.
You don't have to pick a side. You can actually say that I'm happy that this country presented me with the opportunities to do things for myself and my family and move forward, and also say I don't like the fact that things are happening to people of color.
That's right.
That aren't being taken care of.
You don't have to choose one side.
You don't have to choose one or the other.
Think about this. What was your favorite TV show growing up? Like maybe Cheers or whatever it is, right?
Different strokes.
Different strokes.
I would go Good Times.
Okay, so just think of
Stafford and Son.
that. The NFL is the #1 TV show on 5 networks. Yeah. Okay, these are America's movie stars, like TV stars.
Yeah.
I grew up with Johnny Carson. Now it's Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot to be thankful for. You don't have to take a side. You can believe. Like I said yesterday, I can have my quarterback be an activist. I'd like him to be more of a quarterback than an activist. Mostly I want to hear more football than activism, but you can do both. And I think Kaepernick's problem has been, I don't hear him talking football. That's my biggest issue, has always been with him. I like that Dak's talking football and can be an activist. Welcome back. Tony Gonzalez, Eric Davis are here. Let's move to Detroit, where the Lions just made Matt Stafford, Matthew, the highest paid player in NFL history, giving the quarterback a 5-year contract with an average annual salary of about $27 large, including $92 million guaranteed. That's nice. The Detroit Free Press has called the contract a mistake, and as you see here, Stafford's never won a playoff game. Losing career record, just one road win against teams that finish with winning records. All right, Whitlock, fair to criticize Matt Stafford's new contract?
Well, I think it's absolutely fair to criticize the contract, but I also think the Lions did the right thing. I think this guy's super talented. I think he's someone that could eventually get it done in the postseason and be. It wouldn't surprise me if some point in his career he was in the MVP conversation. Yeah. But again, is it fair to criticize? Absolutely. There's some knocks on Stafford.
Yeah, there's knocks on him, but like if you were if you were a steakhouse, you got to get the steak right. I mean, baked potatoes are important, asparagus too, but you got to get the steak right. Okay, since Matt Stafford hit the Lions, they've thrown the ball more than any team except Drew Brees and the Saints. This is a passing franchise. They don't run the ball. Now, with Barry Sanders, they were a running franchise. They have essentially, like the Colts with Andrew Luck, Brees, New Orleans, Lions, Stafford, said, go. 44 throws a game, go. Big Ben's like 15th, 12th in the league. So you tell me, you've put the franchise on him. You don't have a great owner, don't have a great GM. You're on your second coach. You've run through coordinators. Calvin Johnson retired early. You have no running game. You're not going to, the $27 million, by the way, on the open market, you don't think teams are going to pay $32 million for Matt Stafford? Or is the
No, you're right. You're right. No, go ahead. I see your face.
Well, I think right now it's absolutely fair. It's a fair contract. I don't care what anybody says. This is what these guys get paid now. This is the quarterback position. This is how it goes. This is CEOs of big-time companies. They're going to get paid a lot of money.
These are bonuses for CEOs.
This is fine, absolutely fine to me. Okay, he's the most important position on that team. They went to the playoffs. I mean, you can't just go pick up a quarterback because they're not a dime a dozen. I mean, they're hard to cultivate and get them to a franchise face of your organization type phase in their career. So absolutely, if you don't like it, then too bad, because it's going to keep happening. There's going to be, it's going all throughout all sports.
Wait to see what Kirk Cousins makes.
It's happening.
Yeah, it's more than fair. You're right. It's the going rate for a quarterback. And now, you start going into, well, he hasn't won a playoff game. Well, Derek Carr hasn't won one either. Okay? He's a young guy. He got hurt. He hasn't won one. No one complains about his contract. Carson Palmer is on, you talk about highest paid quarterbacks. Okay, you look at Carson and in the playoffs and some of the things he's done. No one's complaining about that. There's no reason to complain about what this guy is making, because without him, do they have a chance?
Look,
no, they don't. They have a chance with him.
Cowherd said the key word for me. You brought up Kirk Cousins, and the difference to me between when Cousins finally gets his long-term contract, I'm going to rip it and criticize it because he's not nearly as talented as Matt Stafford.
Oh, Matt Stafford was the number one high school player and the number one college quarterback.
And so if you're going to gamble, I say gamble on this kind of talent and this kind of arm talent. Now, again, if we get to the point with Kirk Cousins, and to me, he doesn't deserve this type of contract.
He's going to get it.
It's coming.
And that will be a problem. But in terms of Matt Stafford, I totally get it. I get why people are critical of it. They are taking a bit of a risk. You do need the wins in the postseason. But
they also need a running game and defense.
Yeah.
By the way,
they let Ndamukong Suh go.
We do this in society. We tend to look up and say we don't have this. You see the Kardashians. You're like, oh, private jet. But look around and look down. Look what the people in Houston are going through. Same with the NFL with quarterbacks. You look up and go, we don't have Brady and Rodgers. Why don't you look down at the 17 teams who have a guy named McCown?
Or Goff, your quarterback.
Let's slow down on that, he's young. But, I mean, it's easy to say we don't have Aaron Rodgers. Look around the league. Look at the Jets and Cleveland 49ers. Like, if you don't have a franchise guy, what an awful life it is in this league. You're driving to work every day.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
What do you mean you play with Matt Ryan?
That was at the end.
And he was in second, third. We didn't play with Matt Ryan like MVP Matt Ryan.
You know Trent Green watches this show. You got to be careful. To another NFC North quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. As usual, expectations are sky high for the Packers star. But that didn't stop our good friend Tony Gonzalez from raising them even higher.
I'm trending him up right there, Mr. R-E-L-A-X, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. I think this guy is poised to have an MVP-type season. In fact, I'll go even as far as to say it. I think he might break Peyton Manning's record this year for touchdowns because of what he has on offense.
That's good commentary.
All right, Cowherd.
God, that was good.
Do you believe Rodgers will break Peyton Manning's record of 55 touchdowns?
No, because the NFC is really good. You'd need 3.5 a year. His best has been 3. And frankly, I don't think if you got to that point, that means they're unbalanced. And I think McCarthy is a really good coach. He's an offensive-minded guy, and I think he likes balance. And so I mean, is he talented enough to do it? Yeah. But I don't think that would tell me that they're uneven. And I don't think you can beat a Seattle and Seattle.
Uneven.
Yeah, but I think.
By the way,
the year they won the Super Bowl, remember they had a very good running game late in the year. 55 touchdowns, that's almost 4 a game. That means you're basically not running the ball.
And that may be the position that they're in because they haven't taken care of all the pieces around them. Again, I think Tony's bet is that their defense isn't going to be great, so you're going to have to outscore people.
Yes.
If they had a great defense, then you run a little bit more ball control and you run out the clock some. But I think he's saying he's going to be in a lot of shootouts. The reason why I don't think it's going to happen, I just don't think you can do it in Green Bay. I just think, and I know he's thrown 45 touchdowns there, but I just think the weather and that atmosphere just doesn't lead.
You're also playing in Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago. I just don't think at the end of the year, I don't think you can keep that 4.5 or 4 touchdowns a game pace. I don't think you can do it.
The hardest reason that I see to be able to accomplish this, the hardest thing in front of him, is the fact that you got to have so many other people willing to do this and working with you. All your receivers have to be having really good years.
And healthy.
They have to be able to make plays for you. Most importantly, to break a record like that, Tony, your head coach has to be in with it. And he's got to want you to break that record. If you go into week 16, you're the Green Bay Packers. You have the division wrapped up. What is Mike McCarthy going to do? Is he going to play Aaron Rodgers, or is he going to sit him and get him ready for the playoffs? I think he'd sit him. So you need a coach that wants to break that record too, as opposed to saying, I'm going to do this thing that's best for the team, or I think it's going to be best for us down the road. That's why I think that's why I don't think he'll break it, because I don't think McCarthy is going to be all about breaking a record. I think he's going to be more concerned about making certain that they get the offside kick.
Rodgers will be either. I don't know if he'll be all about breaking the record.
I don't think that's something you set out at the beginning of the season to say, okay, we're going after that record this year. But I know all signs, and watching them play in the preseason, you look at their roster. This is the best offense that he's ever had, in my opinion. Looking at that, especially with Martellus Bennett, I think, which is a huge addition down there in the red zone with Randall Cobb. You got Jordy Nelson, had 14 touchdowns last year. Did I already say Randall Cobb?
Yeah.
Marcellus Wiley. You got Tyler Montgomery, who's an ex-receiver coming out there. And then there's one other guy, Devontae Adams. With Aaron Rodgers, even if you can run the ball, which I think they'll be better at running the ball. They got a pretty good offensive line. You get down to that red zone, you just spread everybody out. What do you do? With Aaron Rodgers pulling the trigger, if they want this record, they can go get it.
Now, when Peyton got the record, Denver's defense was amazing. Part of this is getting the ball back in good field position.
Yeah.
Like Peyton Manning, there was a lot of 3 and outs. So Peyton was getting 13 possessions a game, and he was getting the ball to 50 because Denver was pinning people. The problem is Green Bay allows a lot of yards. He may just not get the snaps.
He is, in my view, the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. And to me, yes, the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. And I think, and I know Peyton didn't do it in Indianapolis, but if you put Aaron Rodgers in a dome, I think he does it. In Green Bay at the end of the year, for the reasons you're talking about, again, I think Peyton was a stat junkie. I don't think Aaron Rodgers.
You know what? No, let's just think about Peyton. When Peyton threw those 55 touchdowns, I think I was looking at something one time, and I think his average ball flight was less than 10 yards. I mean, Bebe should have been the MVP. He was taking 2-yard hitch routes and running them 55 yards. So those are the type things that I'm saying that you have to have working for you to score that many touchdowns. You got to have guys taking 8-yard hitches, breaking tackles, going long. It's not going to all be pretty passes or all in the red zone where you're down there picking guys apart. You got to have a lot of guys making plays from you off, from a long way with a lot of green.
I will say this too. Get back to your point there, Colin. When we out in Kansas City that year, we had that offensive line. Pierce Holmes was MVP. I think we led the league in scoring that year. It was like 33 or whatever it was, 32 points a game, because we had the worst defense in the league too. So sometimes when you have that defense, it's called a shootout. And we're gonna keep going. We're gonna get the ball out because they're gonna keep scoring, and we got to keep scoring points. So
Greg Robinson.
By the way, Peyton Manning's a stat junkie?
Yes, he was a stat junkie.
Where does that come from?
Because again, he was never going to get the titles like Brady, so he wanted all the records. Welcome back. We're joined now by Fox NBA analyst Jim Jackson and the founder of the Big League, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to the NBA and Kevin Durant. The Warriors star made waves with some harsh words about LeBron James last week, and this week had some even harsher words for Steph Curry's shoe brand, Under Armour, during a discussion with Bill Simmons about college recruits.
Shoe companies have a real big influence on where these kids go. So nobody wants to play in Under Armours, I'm sorry. Like, the top kids don't, because they all play Nike.
Have you talked to Steph about this?
Nah, but come on, man. Everybody knows that. Nobody don't want to say nothing.
So the Nike sponsor Durant is now taking a shot at Under Armour. He also overshadowed Curry on the court last season. Cowherd, has Durant damaged Curry's brand?
Well, Curry's brand is shrinking, I think. First of all,
that's damage.
Yeah, it's damage.
Shrinkage isn't good.
Good point. But I think this is the downside to adding, another star to a movie, adding, I mean, listen, you put LeBron on the Miami Heat and D. Wade wasn't quite as big. And I just think this is natural. The downside of the super teams, you got to give up some shots and you got to give up some of your brand. And that's the downside of the Warriors.
You have a problem with using the word damage?
No, damage seems so severe. Curry's still a global star. It's just he is not as big as he was 2 years ago.
They asked 39 NBA rookies to choose their favorite NBA player, and not one NBA rookie chose Steph Curry.
Wow. Where did you get
39 NBA rookies.
That's good.
Not one chose Steph Curry. They picked Jamal Crawford, Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony.
Okay, that's damage.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wait a second. Let me ask a quick question about brands here, guys. Is jersey sales part of the brands? Is that part of you?
Yeah, sure.
Steph Curry was #1 in jersey sales last year. How about, let's see here, merchandise? What was Steph Curry last year? Any guesses? #1 in the NBA. How about endorsements? Curry was 2 to LeBron. I mean, if that stuff makes up your brand, he is still right there at the top of the NBA.
You're making a good point. He doesn't get I don't think he gets any money for those jerseys or merchandise. He's tied directly to the shoes, which have been a flop.
You said money. How about his contract? His new $200 million contract, highest paid player in the league? Face of Under Armour, Jim? Come on.
I mean, but that's like saying Matt Stafford, because he's the highest paid quarterback, player in the league right now. Here's my thing. With Steph, he was starting to diminish a little bit anyway before Durant, just because I think people love the adorable feature of him early on. Cuddly, this little guy is getting it done. Then all of a sudden, it started to turn the corner. You know how it is in the NBA, in professional sports. First they love you, then they go start nitpicking at something. Then you add a Kevin Durant, who's almost like a transformational kind of player. It did take a little bit of the shine away. And Kevin Durant is telling the truth about the shoe companies. Even when I went to Ohio State, I wanted to make sure we had Nikes. That we were playing in Adidas before then. I grew up in Nike. So I get what he's saying in regards to kids looking at it from a different perspective. But I do think Steph Curry was starting to get a little bit of backlash even before Kevin Durant came in there.
Is it possible the loser's Under Armour, not as much Steph?
There you go.
Now, Under Armour stock's down 40%.
They both got to lose. Steph's tied to Under Armour. He's a part of the narrative that Under Armour's going down.
Yeah, but if Nike has a bad year of earnings, Michael Jordan's still Michael Jordan. A player can separate to some degree.
What's the difference with Under Armour? Under Armour doesn't have a lifestyle brand, okay? Adidas and Nike, if you're talking about lifestyle and the younger generation, it's all about that. When you throw on some Air Force Ones, you're going back old school. When you throw on some shell toes like I have on right now with Adidas, you're talking about a lifestyle brand. Under Armour hasn't crossed that threshold yet. They're still trying to figure out the athletic side, let alone
5 to 10 years, Jim.
What'd you say?
Under Armour, like 5 to 10. Nike's been around like 30.
No, but I'm saying when you're talking about losing market share and how you're going to dominate and play in this market, you have to start to transition over, just like Nike and Adidas did, in regards to we're just not a sports brand, we're a lifestyle brand, and that causes people to go out and really want to market and buy your products.
You know, it is interesting, though, that we're discussing this, right? And so if we're discussing it, I mean, Kevin Durant's like everybody's talking about it. I do wonder if it will have an impact going forward with joining star teams that you will say, now, I mean, people are watching the Under Armour stock go down. So all these other shoe companies are like, are they going to have the influence to say, Chris Paul, you're not going to go play with LeBron? Will this have a reverb effect?
I want to go a step further and wonder if Under Armour isn't going to try to exercise some influence over Steph Curry
and move him
at some point and say, look, man, we're paying you more than the Golden State Warriors. We're paying you more than anybody to sell these shoes. And it's hard to sell these shoes when Kevin Durant is so much better than you
and
on
is
ripping
team. You.
And seriously. And so I could see Under Armour asking this dude, maybe you sell more shoes out of Charlotte with Michael Jordan.
Didn't Curry just have the greatest finals of his career, 26, 9, and 8? I mean, he was tremendous in the finals. He's got 2 rings, 2 MVPs.
And you're the
Guys,
only one that bought a shoe.
I am the president of the Steph Curry fan club.
That's not gonna sell shoes because the shoes are not attractive. They're not cool.
It's just a slice of the whole brand.
But that's what that's what we're talking about. But what Under Armour? What do you have? Football and basketball.
And baseball, Bryce Harper.
Football and basketball. Okay, football and basketball. That's what's going to really sell. You gonna go out and sell some cleats that you can wear around in the street? No, you can't.
But
you can't do it.
The bigger story is Kevin Durant just ripped Under Armour.
Yeah.
Under Armour represents Steph Curry. You don't think they called Steph Curry? To your point, listen, we know that if you're Jim Harbaugh at Michigan or you're the new coach at Texas, there are boosters you answer to. Okay, you tick off the wrong booster, you can be out of a job at Ohio State or Alabama or Auburn. Bottom line is, Under Armour heard those comments. We're talking about those comments. This is a discussion now with Steph and Under Armour.
What do you think it leads to?
Well, I'm just saying.
New location for Steph.
Oh, come on. Yeah, let's get him to Charlotte. Yeah, let's
Eventually, he was a better attraction without Kevin Durant.
He's
Would you
not
admit
Kyrie.
that?
He's
was
not
he a better
Kyrie.
attraction without?
No,
without
now
Kevin
they're
Durant?
one of the most best dynasties in NBA history. That's much better than just winning 67 games.
Steph feels to me smaller today than 2 years ago.
Feels damaged, doesn't it?